Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome. First of all, Anita, would you be so kind as to come forward to the stage and please applaud her. Anita, you are an expert, so there's a very simple question that you can answer. What is a cartoon?
I'm always doubting about cartoon, spot print. A cartoon, well, what we heard this afternoon, it is a picture, sometimes with some words. A picture which, how do we say this in English? Huh?
Paints a complicated situation in only
one picture, but it's not true.
No, it's not true.
One image, but the image is going very fast. That is what we heard this afternoon. That they explained, or experts explained it. That it is something you cannot oversee. So if you open the paper, what is the krant, the newspaper, then when there is a cartoon, you cannot oversee it, and it is something that tells a lot without words.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anita. Thank you very much.
There are words, but not many.
Nice try, nice try. Yeah, and remember, as we learned this afternoon too, that the average guy or girl who reads that newspaper takes about 3 seconds to look at that cartoon. And then it should be understood. If no, chance over and out. Yeah, okay. This night, well, let's say 1.5 hours, is about cartoons internationally. And we start off with you. Would you be as kind as to come forward to Pedro Molina? And welcome him. You are from Nicaragua? Yeah, please, yeah. And let's do Nicaragua for dummies, so we all understand.
All right. Hello.
And let's start at the end of the 70s. There was a guy, and we know him well enough because he's in the newspapers almost every week now. But, and he started off as a young, rebellious type at the end of the 70s. His name was?
Ortega.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Ortega?
Yeah.
I will guess, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about what happened in Nicaragua around about that time.
Well, I'm going to talk about that with the presentation, which I don't know if it's the
Are you going to put it into the presentation?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to talk a little bit about
Would you
that.
like to start with the presentation and then do the questions?
That I don't know. I don't know the protocol of this.
I decide now that you start off with the presentation
Got it. All right.
and questions afterwards. There you go.
All right. Okay. So I don't know who is assisting us with the presentation, but if you can put, I have my notes over here. Oh yeah. So just click forward. Amazing. All right. Right. Okay. So I have my notes over here, which I am going to use. Not just because my English is not the best, but also because otherwise I could get into an idea and never stop, all right? So in order to help you and help me, I'm going to follow my notes over here. So thanks for the organizers of this event for inviting me to talk about my work and the context in which it's created. Let's start with the basics. My name is Pedro Molina. I am from Nicaragua and I am a cartoonist. That means that I make a living criticizing the world around me, or rather, those who make the world around us such an uninhabitable place. So yeah, let's talk about Nicaragua. What most people know about Nicaragua, if they know, oh, sorry, I'm forgetting the slides. So that's me as a cartoonist. I already say that. Okay, so let's start with Nicaragua now. Okay, so what most people know about Nicaragua, if they know something at all, is that we had a huge revolution back in 1979. It was inspired largely by this guy, Augusto Sandino. Sandino fought against the military occupation of the US in my country between 1927 until his assassination in 1934. Oops. He was killed by this guy sitting here next to FDR. That's Anastasio Somoza Garcia. Somoza and his sons, the Somoza dictatorship, for more reference, ruled Nicaragua for 40 years. This is a cartoon that German-Dutch cartoonist Fritz Verheerm, and I think I'm butchering his last name, but anyway. Thank you. Made in those years, okay? So, that lasts until July 19, in 1979, when he was overthrown by the Sandinista Popular Revolution. This is a cartoon that Nicaraguan cartoonist Roger Sanchez made at that time, right? Roger was like a big thing during the 80s in Nicaragua. He wasn't only a cartoonist, he was a philosopher, and he was, of course, a big influence for me. But anyway, that's out of, see, that's why I have to follow my notes. All right, so what followed was a decade of civil war with Nicaragua divided into two armed groups. The Sandinista regime totally sided with the Soviet Union, and the Contra Army, which was supported by the Reagan administration. That war left us tens of thousands of Nicaraguans dead, exiled and crippled for life, and a country in ruins. In other words, for us, the Cold War was extremely hot. In the 90s, we finally had free elections, and Nicaragua was able to get rid of Daniel Ortega, while in the US, Reagan was also out. So it was in the 90s also when I started drawing cartoons. I was 70 years old, and this is actually, this is the first cartoon that I ever did. And it was a critical view of the arrogant former president Daniel Ortega, who believed that the revolution was his and nothing more than his. Anyway, finally we lived in freedom and had the chance to rebuild the country and its institutions. That lasted until 2006, when a pact between the extreme left and the extreme right political parties allowed Ortega to return to power. That's him looking himself in the mirror as Somoza. Since then, he and his wife, Rosario Murillo, which is also his vice president, ruled Nicaragua, imposing fear and repression, and making their eccentric children an essential part of the repressive regime. So, in summary, we are, as a country, at the same point where we were more than 40 years ago with the Somoza dynasty, with the exception that the current dictatorship this time comes from the left, not from the right, which at this point in the world we live in right now, it makes no difference in terms of repression. Repression that worsened in April 2018 when fed up people took to the streets to protest, and the response of the dictator couple was to start killing Nicaraguans in the streets right away. I was, of course, drawing on all this as I have been doing it professionally for over 25 years. These are some cartoons that I did at that time. I don't know if you will remember this. In 2018, there was a great controversy, big controversy over the poor treatment of migrant children by the Trump administration. And this cover from Time magazine was all over the internet back at that time. So something of course horrible, and everyone was talking about it. But that very same week, a young married couple was running with their 2 children in Managua, the capital of Nicaragua. seeking protection from the regime's paramilitaries that were ravaging the streets. One of the snipers was nearby. He did not aim his rifle at the father or the mother. He aimed directly at the head of the smaller baby that the father was carrying on his arms and killed him. And no one was talking about that week. Taylor Lorio was his name, and he was just one of the many minors who, along with the rest of the adult Nicaraguans who have been victims, have been murdered by Ortega Murillo. So this is a cartoon that I did at that time. Of course, the dictatorship was not happy with the coverage that the independent media were doing of its repression. They didn't want anyone inside or outside Nicaragua to know what was happening. During those months, many journalists covering the protests in the streets were robbed and beaten. Another regime sniper killed journalist Angel Gaona with a shot to his head while he was broadcasting on Facebook Live. And in December 2018, Confidential Facilities, Confidencial is the digital newspaper that published my work, were taken over by the regime police. This is a photo of me drawing in the Confidential newsroom just a few days before it was taken over and looted by the dictatorship. And this is how they left the newsroom after looting it. To this day, that building remains in the hands of the dictatorship. So, because of that, the repression continued with other independent media outlets. And many journalists, including me, had to go into exile in order to continue doing our work. So here I am, thanks to the support of several cartoonists, artists, journalism, and human rights organizations, drawing about what has been happening in my home country, like the supposed elections that we had last year, where all the candidates but Daniel Ortega, were in jail because he put all of them there. So this is a cartoon about that. Anyway, so I have been drawing about my home country, but also about what is happening in the United States, which is the country that has welcomed me, and for which I cannot help worrying when I notice that many harmful political behaviors that we have already seen and experienced in Latin America are beginning to be seen there as well. So this is a cartoon that I did after the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol in the US. So this year I have continued to make my daily cartoons for Confidential and other projects focused on denouncing human rights abuses in Nicaragua. One of them has been the now called Remembering is Resisting, a project that emerged inspired by the popular online artistic exercise called Inktober. For those of you who may not know what Inktober is a challenge in which the artists are invited to create a drawing in a traditional way, because most of us now we draw digitally, but this is in the traditional way in actual paper and ink, every day of the month of October. So in 2018, I thought of using the challenge, which has an international presence on social media, as another way of denouncing what was happening in my country. So I began to draw every day of October of that year a victim of the dictatorship, adding to the drawings their names and details on how they were killed. Despite being an emotionally draining project, it has been one of the most rewarding ones of my career, mainly because I started with a small list of the most well-known cases that came out in the media, but when they began to be shared on social media, the families and friends of the victims began to send me information on their loved ones who had been murdered by the dictatorship, so I could include them. So this personal project ended up becoming a collaborative one with the family of the victims. In October 2019, now from exile, I continued with the project. Then in 2019, and in 2021. I don't know if I will be able, if I do this, will play? Because this is a video. How do I play it? Can I? Continue?
Yes, forward.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So that's a little video of the book that we put out. Okay, so this time we decided to put together a book with all the drawings created over these years and distributed in a digital format, because due to this censorship is the only way to circulate this type of work within Nicaragua. The book also includes comments from the families of the victims, which for me, it makes it super special. So that's what you are seeing here. This is the amount of victims that I have been able to draw so far. And the little quotes that you can see below, and some of them, they are from their families. So it was very special for me, that. Okay. So another interesting project was participating in the human rights campaign of NBA basketball player Enes Freedom, who has a peculiar way of raising awareness about human rights violations around the world. Using his shoes decorated with denunciations of human rights abuses in various countries. So this is the Nicaraguan one, which is already done and out, and I am currently working on another one. Of course, as I said, although my work about Nicaragua continues to be a high priority for me, I also focus on other issues. Together with some great US colleagues, I'm also regularly doing cartoons for Counterpoint.com, covering current events in the US, such as this one, and also covering events that happen in some other places of the world, so like this one about Afghanistan. And yeah, I know. And this one about Ukraine. That I did recently, you may have seen on the exhibition. So yeah, I also get involved in international campaigns like the project I did with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights on issues that are of particular importance for me, including, of course, freedom of speech, freedom of press and protection of journalists, and of course, migrant rights. So, in short, art, journalism, and humor have been my tools to try to understand myself and the world I live in and express my opinions on those issues that afflict us. Either they are locally, regionally, like the drug problems in Latin America and the reasons behind it, or globally, like climate change. So, yeah, that's my work, that's what I do, and thank you very much for your attention.
Where would one be without the microphone? Thank you very much, Pedro. Let's do one or two questions and go on to the next cartoonist. Important one is, what do you consider a real dilemma at the moment for you? I mean, not everything in life is clear. Sometimes we are wondering what we should do, where we should go. What is your dilemma at the moment?
That's exactly the dilemma, not knowing. I mean, I know that I want to keep doing this, and I have been able to do it since 2018 from outside Nicaragua, thanks to the help of many, many people. But I have been teaching as a part, also to support myself. But right now, my contract is ending. And I am not sure how I am going to continue doing this. What I am sure is that I want to keep doing it, and hopefully find a way, to keep at it. But that's exactly the biggest one. Yeah. Because the things like talking about what is happening in your country, it had never crossed my mind to stop doing so. So that's something that I don't know for sure. I want to keep doing it. I want to stay connected with my country. I feel I need to. So that's out of the question.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
is there any spark of hope when you look at Nicaragua at the moment?
Well, the only hope that I have is it doesn't come. It comes actually from history. We have been through this before as people in Nicaragua. You know, we did it with Somoza dynasty, and everybody thought at that moment that Somoza was invincible, and he fell. So, and we were able to get rid of him. So my hope is that we are going to be able again to get rid of this new dictatorship. Mm-hmm. How long it will take, I don't know. No. And how that could be achieved, I think it should be a sum of very different efforts, but not necessarily the same recipe that we have used in the past.
No. And how big can a distance grow? Nicaragua is your source. Personally, politically, but also for you as an artist. And when a source is in a distance, the difficulty might be that you're not close enough to make the drawings, make the cartoons that you would like to have made if you would have been there. How about that?
Well, it's different now. This is actually my second exile. The first one, it was when I was a kid. By the way, by the same man. Right? Yeah. So this is my second exile because of Ortega. The same people. Okay. Anyway, but at that time it was, my father was working like everybody back in the 80s were supporting, you know, the government, the revolution. And, you know, he found about corruption, he didn't like it, he quit, and he was put in a blacklist, and the whole family had to move out. Mm-hmm. So, it's happening again for many, many families, also for second time. So what I think is that right now it's quite different, because back at that time it was very different. Even when we were very close, we were in Guatemala because we didn't have the money to go to other place. So it was very difficult to find out what was happening in Nicaragua, because you know, even letters, it will take a long time to get from Nicaragua to Guatemala. And there wasn't cell phones or anything, no internet or nothing. Now at least we have all those things. Now I have to say that when I was in Nicaragua, I was working on my studio, so I was always more focused on what was the people talking about around me than what the politicians were doing behind doors in Managua, right? Yeah. So now that social media plays a role in that. You are in
contact with.
So I am in contact with all of them, and a lot of people write to me and say, you know, and share information and share their feelings. Okay. Okay. So that's very useful for me to work with that.
Okay, thank you. We're also going to listen to Hossien. Where is he? Yeah, there you are. He's from Afghanistan. Come to the stage. There's, yeah, do that. A warm welcome for you too. Would you also like to do a presentation first?
No.
Or do we do it in an interview form?
I think
yeah? Yeah. If you keep it close to your mouth? Yeah. Maybe it's a good idea to give you a few minutes to introduce you, yourself, your country, and your work.
Yeah, my name is Hossien Rezaei. I was born and raised in Iran, actually, because my fathers, more than 40 years ago, have forced to leave Afghanistan and take refuge in Iran. I was born and raised in Iran, get my bachelor and my master in architecture.
Can you put it a little bit closer to your mouth?
Yeah, get my bachelor and my master in architecture, and make a lot of dream about the architecture. And then I decided to, you know, get back to the Afghanistan and do my fair share toward my country.
When was that?
It was around 2013, I believe. Okay. Yeah. And when I was in Afghanistan, I was happy with everything. I was working as a lecturer in a university. I got a small company with two of my friends and doing some construction and designing. And suddenly things get worse.
And designing, you mean that you also made drawings at the time?
Yeah.
But architectural drawings.
Actually, yeah. And actually things get worse, you know. We have witnessed so many, you know, suicide attacks, so many attacks to, you know, targeting schools, you know, civilian, and so on and so on. And I have witnessed so many of them, and little by little, I reached to the point that I need to do something. And then I start drawing cartoons.
Why cartoons? Men can do anything. You can write songs, you can make a fortune, you can leave the country, and you can make cartoons. Just to mention a few possibilities. Why did you choose cartoons?
Yeah, it's actually got two reasons. Yeah, before drawing cartoons, I was a big fan of drawing beautiful things, you know, scenery, and I was a big fan of drawing
ugly things.
Yeah. And then also, as may know, many of you, that in Afghanistan, so many people cannot read or write, and actually cannot speak in English to communicate with the world. And these two reasons pushed me forward to, you know, drawing cartoons, because with the cartoon, I was able to talk on behalf of those people, and also, you know, convey their message to the world, and people and the world could, you know, see their situation through my cartoons. Mm-hmm. And when I started drawing cartoon, it was kind of, you know, just reaction to the those, you know, suicide attacks. Then little by little, I get reaction from the people, those who suffered.
And how did you bring your cartoons to the people? Because Pedro told us that he was working for magazines, newspapers, etc., international organizations later on. What was your channel for the cartoons?
Yeah, actually my channel was my own social media and my friends, you know, those who know about me, mm-hmm. and they helped me to share my cartoons, because as you know, in Afghanistan, due to the radicalism and those radical groups, drawing cartoon is really hard, you know, because when they think about the cartoon, the first thing pops up in their mind is Charlie Hebdo and those, you know, really, really critical thing in their eyes, and those, you know, subjects make it really, really sensitive in Afghanistan, and I've always preferred not to be seen, and my friends always helped me to, you know, share my cartoon with the people. And
that meant that you didn't put your name under it?
I sign it, but not my name.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you see, there is a sign, but that's not my name.
Uh-huh.
But little by little, you know, in Afghanistan, due to the, you know, kind of society we got, whether you want it or not, people start getting know you. So to be honest with you, sometimes I do scared, because I was working in university, and when you are working with the student, you got many kind of, you know, many students from different part of your country, and some of them are reacting really in a radical way, and you know, it was really scary, mm-hmm. But it was the path that I choose to, you know, talk on behalf of the people, and I was ready to pay the price.
And did you ever have to pay the price?
Not yet, maybe, I don't know, because is it right or not? I found the chance to be evacuated from Afghanistan by Dutch military delegation.
When was that? When were you being helped to leave Afghanistan by Dutch?
It was around 8 or 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were one of the very few people who got on the famous list.
Yeah, exactly. I just sent an email because I work with the cartoon movement and Cartoon for Peace. You know, in those dark days, I just sent an email.
To the Dutch embassy?
To the cartoon movement.
Ah,
My
okay.
friend Chert.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're based here. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend
Okay.
Chert, and you know, it was just you know, I said like, okay, let's give it a try, and just send a email, and they responded, and it was, how can I say, it was awesome, and
Yeah.
it was, and just
Okay.
things happen, you know. Sometimes I cannot believe that now I'm here.
Yeah. And before that time, did you ever publish in, let's say, an official environment, a newspaper or whatever, or was it still social media thing?
No, when I get known with the people, some newspapers comes to me and just ask me for some cartoons and draw some cartoon for them, but not too much, because in Afghanistan actually also newspapers are not really popular,
Okay.
We have maybe
well, that's not so much different from
because
Holland.
we have maybe a handful of newspapers. I don't know.
Yeah.
Really. I do not want to talk about the number, but
In the background is one really funny and beautiful picture, I must say. Can you tell us about the situation in which you made this one?
Actually, when we were in Afghanistan, okay, we got after, how can I say, 2001, United States came to Afghanistan. And
After the Twin Towers?
Yeah, exactly. And they established a kind of, how can I say, the democracy. And Taliban start, blaming the government. You are, how can I say, you are not Islamic government, and start, targeting people. Military personnel, I don't know, US-led coalition, and so on and so on. Okay, then after that, when the Taliban take over, now ISIS start targeting Taliban and the peoples. I want to show that radicalism has no limit. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would be able to show it or not, because it's just like a circles, because
yeah, it's a very interesting drawing, because it looks very simple, but the whole philosophic idea behind it, that you struggle into your own problem, and that you end your own situation because of the radical choice you made, is put in a very beautiful and direct cartoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But continue. You said you came to Holland, and then?
Yeah, then about myself, first couple of months, I got a lot of energy, and I was, trying to do something, and I did my best. But little by little, to be honest with you, now I'm just struggling to find my place and to, figure out what am I supposed to do, and, find a solid ground in order to make a plan, because I'm currently living camp, and I have not so stable place to stay, and I'm just waiting to, find a how can I say, a stable situation, and then maybe make a plan for the future. But I'm pretty sure that the cartoon now is a part of my journey, or it's maybe it's part of my heart.
And are you still drawing at the moment? Are you still making cartoons?
Yeah, I'm doing my best. When I was found the chance to be evacuated from Afghanistan, actually I get a call almost in the middle of the night, 10 p.m. Because in Afghanistan, due to the insecurity, 10 p.m. is a time that we make it fun and saying that, okay, president even cannot, go out in 10 p.m. in Afghanistan. I found a chance, and I talked to the lady, and she told me that this is your last chance. You have to get to the airport. And the airport got a two section, a military section and a civil section. And I have to get myself to the military section. And I just got a small tablet drawing on that. It's almost 6 or 7 years old. It's getting my old friends, making, bound. And I just pick up my tablet, go through the 3 Taliban checkpoints. I was completely well aware of the Taliban, capture me and go through my tablet because I am Hazara minority and Shia minority.
Hazaras from the north, eh?
From the middle of Afghanistan, center of Afghanistan. And those 2 beautiful, Buddha statue was blown up by the Taliban. I'm from that area. And we have been, how can I say, killed and persecuted in the last 2 centuries, even in 150 years ago around. The king of that time, killed over 63% of our population, Hazara population. And that night, I don't know how, but I get my tablet, find the courage, get my tablet, go through the Taliban checkpoint, and fortunately made to the airport. And
now
in that place, I got a print of a letter, and showed to the Dutch military personnel, and they picked me up.
And when you make a cartoon now, is it possible for you to send it via social media to your contacts in Afghanistan still? Do they see your work, in other words?
Yeah, I'm just trying to draw a cartoon more and more. And actually, it's kind of on and off because I'm a little far from the Afghanistan when I was there, situation by themselves, those disasters, those attacks pushed me to draw a cartoon. Now I'm a little bit far from Afghanistan, but still I'm doing my best. I'm trying to draw.
And when you make something, it's noticed in Afghanistan. They see it. You reach those people now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We'll continue the conversation with the 2 other people. First of all, somebody who represents Free Press Unlimited. There she is. Please welcome her. If Free Press Unlimited didn't exist, it should be developed, I would say. It should be invented. But let's say we don't know what Free Press is. How would you describe it?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Meera Chowdhury, and as Frank was already explaining, our organization is called Free Press Unlimited, and that says a lot already about our mission and our vision. We are an international press freedom organization that tries to work for media and journalists all over the world in places where press freedom is at stake. So I think we just have listened to 2 extremely well-illustrated examples of places where our support or our work is needed. And there are many more places where we do these kind of things. And support can be from trying to help lobby local governments, but also international or European or sometimes even the United Nations, when we want to try and help the environment for journalists in which they do their work. But also we do practical support. We give trainings on content or on the way how to run a media outlet. Or unfortunately, more and more, we are known for our safety trainings that we give to journalists and media outlets that have to prepare themselves physically, psychologically, legally, and in many other ways for threats that are coming from often the government, but also sometimes from other groups that are not happy with something like press freedom and freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us an example of a success that Free Press Unlimited can be proud of?
Yes, I think we are extremely proud that we are here with Pedro, who we have been working with his media outlet Confidencial for quite a long time. But I really believe that we can be proud of every small and big support that we give to media and journalists, because it's a pity that we are needed, but to give sometimes only a little bit financial or psychological support to someone that is very much in need, or that has a particular story that otherwise would not have been able to be published, or to actually help media outlets to keep on focusing on journalistic work and not only having to try and be worried about their safety. I think Confidencial is an outlet that we helped a lot. I myself work mostly in Latin America, but I've, for example, also worked a lot in the Great Lakes region in Africa. We have our guest from Congo here, but earlier this morning there was someone from Burundi, where media outlets who were supposed to start working from exile without anything. We equipped them completely with studios, with contacts, and with some space to concentrate on reporting what's going on in the country that they had to leave behind. And I think that is what I'm most proud of, that we can help journalists and media outlets continue doing their work even when the situation becomes more and more difficult.
Yeah. What is really a pain in the ass for your organization? What is a big difficulty?
Well, I feel that the world as such is becoming more and more polarized. So when you want to speak about press freedom, when you want to show that, I think Pedro in his presentation, but also Hossien, they show that for a so-called democracy, we need counterpower, we need counterbalance, we need journalists who are acting as a watchdog of society. And that is the job of a journalist. But more and more journalists are being criticized just because they are doing their job. In El Salvador, where we work a lot, the media outlet El Faro is criticizing governments from the almost 25 years that are in existence. Doesn't matter if they are from the left, from the right, or whatever political color they have. That's their job. The journalists are supposed to be a watchdog of what's going on. But now it's always framed as political opposition. And I think that is something that is a pain in the ass or a pain in the whole body of journalists and media outlets.
Now, how can we help you help others?
Well, first of all, I think a stage like this, when we have opportunity to talk about what's going on, not only in the Netherlands, but also in the countries that are maybe a little bit forgotten sometimes in the Dutch press. I know Afghanistan is a lot in the Dutch media, because also there are some Dutch troops, and there are also a history in all kinds of ways. But Nicaragua, for example, or El Salvador, what I was just mentioning, or Burundi, or what's going on in a lot of other countries in Asia, often doesn't come out. So what I would really like us all to do is to keep on asking attention, searching for news and information, not only from countries that are very close to us, but also a little bit further.
Yeah, thank you. Louis Pirenne. Yeah, of course you can ask a question in the meantime, but Louis, come forward, and you put forward your question. Yeah.
Are there possibilities for your organization to help journalists in Russia that are against Putin?
Yeah.
Very much, yes. I deliberately didn't want to talk too much about Ukraine or Russia, because that's dominating the news right now. But yes, actually I just received a photo from my colleague that, again, a new equipment, safety equipment for Russian journalists that are reporting from Russia, but also from Ukraine, has arrived at the office. So they give them practical equipment and supplies, a lot of psychological support, because it's very difficult to keep on doing their job, and media outlets are supported the way actually that.
And you probably also help Russian journalists who have come to Holland and work from here now, like the Moscow Times.
Also, yes.
Yeah.
And Ukrainian journalists as well, who sometimes are not in the Netherlands but in the neighboring countries and try to keep on doing their work from there. Although I must say that most of the partners we work with, media partners in Ukraine, have stayed and are reporting from basements and bunkers.
Okay. Louis, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Louis Pirenne. I am not a specialist on the subject we talk about, but I'm very, very interested. I'm a Haarlemmer, and I would describe myself as a cultural omnivore. Omnivorous, how would you say?
You eat everything that's cultural from...
Basically, yes. And the reason I'm here is that I, since a few months, joined the board of advisors of the festival that's going on now, Stripdagen Haarlem. Let's call it the Comic Culture Biennial. I just made that up, but it's a nice word. It's biannual festival. And I was very proud to be asked to be a member of the board.
Yeah.
So, of course, our foundation has feelings and opinions about the team. And that's why they invited me here, Frank.
Yeah. I was surprised that such, let's say, heavy subject like this was part of the Stripdagen Haarlem. How did you all come to that decision to make that a part of it?
You tackle an interesting point, and that is the fact that the Stripdagen Haarlem is a very broad festival. And that also makes the festival confusing for some people. For example, you have the collector's market where you see people who are really, really collecting old Tintin albums, old Lucky Luke albums, and they pay loads of money to find the first...
money that should go to Free Press Unlimited.
No doubt about it. Change will come. But,
no pasarán.
Venceremos. And all that. But seriously, it is a festival for the lovers of comic books, of all gradations. What I find even more interesting is that it's a festival for the artistic side of comic art. There are very, very many comic artists who have an artistic level here. I think the two gentlemen here are an example of that, seriously. And this means that we try to bring comic art into museums, galleries, unusual exhibition spaces. I find it a very strong point of the festival. Of course, if I'm informed correctly, the festival cooperates with a number of organizations in Haarlem. Could be the Frans Hals Museum, could be the Tijdens Museum, is of course also the Pletterij and the Foundation Haarlem Mutare. And these are the organizations who have a much more political agenda and a much more, how would you call it, activist agenda almost. And then, of course, since a number of years, you see the result that although censorship, political awareness is definitely not the main theme of any biennial strip festival, that it comes with the theme. And that I would be very disappointed if the festival would leave it out.
Yeah, okay. You have always shown a big interest in journalism. Is there any question that you would like to put forward to three people here?
Yes, there is. It's quite a deep question. When I was preparing my presence here, of course, we realize that people like the two artists here have to do their work in very difficult circumstances. Pedro cannot return to Nicaragua at the moment, etc., etc. And the oppression comes from, let's say, the system or the government, which is tough. And I wonder how long ago it was that cartoonists or journalists in the Netherlands have experienced that same oppression from the system. Now, what I find very peculiar when you talk about the Western world, when you see cartoonists at the moment in, for example, the Netherlands, of course oppression doesn't come from the official system. Oppression comes from populism. Oppression comes from social media. Oppression comes from fake news. Oppression comes from some politicians who abuse the freedom of press. So it's not the system, but it's an other source of oppression, which I find maybe as dangerous as the political one. And my question would be, sorry, this is more an answer than a question. Sorry, Frank.
No, really.
My question would be to these two guests. How do you compare the situation in Afghanistan, Nicaragua, Middle America, compared to our press freedom, when our press freedom is under another threat.
Yeah, is also endangered. I would also like to hear your opinion about that. Let's start with the two guys here. Yeah, okay, Pedro.
All right, okay, I go first. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just like a couple of days ago, there was I was invited to have dinner with. I want to say his name right. Chert. How do you? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, and yeah, which is a cartoonist from here, from Netherlands.
Oh, Trick.
And
Trick.
Yeah, Trick.
No, Trick is another cartoonist.
Okay.
But anyway, I went with Shirt. All right.
Oh, cheers. All right.
Yeah. And yeah, he was early today with us in the other thing. So we went to have dinner, and he is from the Netherlands, and we had another cartoonist from Venezuela, very young cartoonist, Camila de la Fuente, and there was another cartoonist, young cartoonist, who he's from Italy, but he's living here right now, and we were talking about the things that afflict us all. Right. So even when, of course, Camila and I, we have, some things to share about official censorship or this kind of stuff. The thing is that we are all struggling because censorship doesn't just come from the political power. It comes from everywhere. Now, it can come from social media. It can come from religion. It can come even from sports. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are some cartoonists in Spain that cannot do, some cartoons about a specific soccer team because it's too controversial, which is, what? I mean, like me, for somebody like me from Central America, this is like the silliest thing I could ever. Anyway, so as you can see, censorship is always there. It's always in danger. It doesn't matter which is your society, because populism, because ignorance, because fanaticism always find a way, into the society. Sometimes it's because for political reasons, sometimes it's because of lack of education on the population. It can come from different sources, but the problem is always there for everybody. So doing cartoons right here, right now, in this time, it doesn't matter in which place you are, it's never easy. I mean,
do you basically mean it comes with the job wherever you are?
Kind of. The thing is that until now, it was easier to navigate this thing. But right now, when you add everything up, let's take this, for example. If you were working in the 80s or the 90s, you were worrying about the government, all right? So you will use, I don't know, an alias or something, and you kept doing your work, and that's it. Today, you have to deal, first you have to find a way to make your living, because the traditional habitat for cartoonists has been always newspapers, and newspapers are dying. So you have to find a way to make a living. Then you may find problems with the government of your country, right? So it can be censorship that comes from power. Then you have to deal with social media. And if we start talking about social media, it's
so what you're saying nowadays, you have to fight a dragon with 7 heads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah. So it's very hard to do.
Yeah. And what is your answer to the question Louis put forward?
Honestly, I'm really agree with
Pedro.
You want to do something else now?
No, I was just trying to say Mr. Molina because, just look at things
Pedro.
as a person, just saying, I'm not consider myself how can I say good cartoonist? I'm just trying to do some cartoon. I'm not as professional as Pedro, and because of that, I was just trying to call him Mr. Molina. Okay, about the drawing cartoon, I just want to share this, that I was in Afghanistan. I was scared of some, regime or, radical group. Now I'm in Netherlands, and I'm still, cannot draw about something. I believe it's come from some kind of self-censorship.
Yeah, an inner censor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just want to add this part. But
Yeah. There's another head of the dragon, the inner sensor.
And there is another head of a dragon. You know what that is? If you are an immigrant, if you're an exile, and now you are living in another place, like I am doing cartoons about what is happening in the U.S. right now, and some people who will say, you know, what
you are our guest.
Yeah, what are you, you know, talking about? So there is another thing to deal with.
You can finish off with your ideas about the modern way of having to fight with the dragon.
Well, I think we need many swords. Because also in the Netherlands, the Press Freedom Index that is made by Reporters Without Borders every year, the Netherlands has fallen 22 places this year.
28,
So I think it's a bit far off the truth to think that we are we have a press freedom situation that's not supposed to be looked at in a different way.
Yeah, but the newspapers are full the last few days with articles about the court case considering the murder of Peter de Vries, of course. And that is one of the most important reasons that the Netherlands has fallen from 6 to 28, isn't it?
Also, yes, I think that was a very prominent case. Of course, all of us remember it, the ones who were in the Netherlands back then, but also lots of other things around trying to hide information, how decisions were made in politics, how reporters were attacked and intimidated when they were trying to report on demonstrations. So we shouldn't make the mistake to think that in the Netherlands we are kind of okay.
Yeah. We used to be proud of our tolerant and free society in terms of press, but we should take another good look in the mirror and see if that is still true. Is that what you're saying?
Very much so. And now we're talking about different kinds of repression or representation, but also in the Netherlands, if you allow me to say so. A lot of people, groups, sometimes minority groups, but for example also women, which we can hardly call a minority group since we are more than 50% in the Netherlands. We aren't equally represented in the media either. There is a report by Gender Media Monitoring who looks at the situation of representation of women in the media in all countries in the world. I think it's every 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. And they found out that if we want to have equal representation of women in the media in the world, it will take us 67 years. To actually reach an equality. So that's another thing we should look at. Because when groups or people feel or are not represented in the media, then some of the feelings that you were just describing are going to brew and to stir, and people will become more polarized.
Yeah, just to give one example, we only have a handful of female leaders of newspapers, the chief editors, let's say 4 or 5, and they're only there since 10 to 15 years. We don't have a female prime minister in the Netherlands so far also.
Yeah, and also maybe local newspapers, because of all the merging of press organizations. I'm also not only talking about women, but also people from different parts of the Netherlands that are not the Randstad, sometimes also feel misrepresented in the media, which again then comes to your conclusion.
It's not Nicaragua, it's not Afghanistan, but we do have a long way to go. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming.